million listeners. KBLA Talk 1580 is a pioneer for Black audio content, including our groundbreaking $2 million climate justice campaign and the most loyal, influential audience. According to an independent research study by the polling firm Editorial, for the second consecutive year, KBLA Talk 1580 is the most trustworthy, reliable, and credible news source for Black audiences and beyond in Southern California. Let KBLA Talk 1580 power your advertising dollars. Our omni-channel custom marketing solutions are specifically tailored to connect with your ideal target audience. We leverage audio, podcasts, streaming, digital, social media, and local activations to get your message out to the Black community. Get in touch with our advertising team today at advertising@kbla1580.com. That's advertising@kbla1580.com. KBLA 1580. We've got your Black.
One, two, three, go! I'm gonna try to keep it coming. Things ain't always smooth, but I'll be alright as long as I can find the groove. Yes, I will. Yeah. Somehow I know that I can make it. You seem to like my style. Don't you worry, I'm gonna be around a while. Yes, I will. I'm just happy to see you talk to me back in style again.
Live from historic Lamert Park in Los Angeles, California, I'm Tavis Smiley, and I'm so glad to see you and me back in stride again. Before we get started with today's show, let me invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley, and get updates on X, that's formerly Twitter, at Tavis Smiley. By the way, if you miss any part of today's program, you can always catch up on previous shows by visiting thetavismiley.show.com. That's thetavismiley.show.com, or wherever you get your podcast, and listen to the Tavis Smiley podcast version of this live program at your leisure. Another great show on tap for you today. In our second hour, two conversations. Up first, our regular contributor, Connie Rice, on all the trending Kamala Harris, Donald Trump political news, and there's a whole lot to get to with Connie in our second hour. At the top, on the B side of our two, we'll speak with Professor Michael Eric Dyson and the Reverend Jamal Bryant about last night's Black Men for Kamala Harris virtual town hall, in which, wait for it, 56,000 black men across America participated. I ain't hating on the sisters, but the night before they had 44,000 people. Last night, 56,000 black men on this virtual town hall in support of Kamala Harris, and they raised a bunch of money last night. I say that because there's been great conversation on this program and beyond about Donald Trump siphoning off black men. Well, if last night was any indication, maybe that story's been overplayed. 56,000 brothers on one call last night, raising over $1 million, indeed, for Kamala Harris's campaign. So we'll talk to Michael Eric Dyson and Jamal Bryant, who were both on that call last night, about what went down. In our third hour, two conversations. Up first, the second half of our conversation today, addressing the question, is democracy on the ballot? Is democracy on the ballot? We'll unpack that question first, I should say second, with political scientist and professor Susan McWilliams-Barnes, who has authored a pretty provocative piece about that very question. On the B side of hour three, a conversation with the legendary Congressman James Clyburn on his staunch support for Kamala Harris. But in this first hour, two more conversations on the B side of this hour. The Reverend Dr. Otis Moss III, with the first half of that conversation about whether democracy is on the ballot. So we'll talk to Otis Moss III first at the bottom of this hour, and then we'll continue that conversation later with the professor. But that is the question of the day. Is democracy on the ballot? We commenced today's show having said all that with the former Secretary of Homeland Security, Jay Johnson. I'm honored to have Secretary Johnson back on this program as Secretary. How are you today, sir?
Tavis. It is an honor and a pleasure to share this hour with my Morehouse brother, Reverend Otis Moss, who is, in my judgment, one of the finest orators of modern times.
He is amazing. He is amazing. You can't put him ahead of his father just yet. Now his daddy's a pretty bad boy too, Otis Moss Jr.
That's true.
Yeah,
another Morehouse man.
Yeah, another Morehouse. Exactly. All these Morehouse men. As I say, You can tell a Morehouse man, you can't tell him much. But I ain't mad at Jay Johnson for shouting out his Morehouse brothers. No, Otis Moss III is a bad brother. For those who don't know him, he's the one you've been seeing trending all over the news, all over social media, with this video where he just lays into this question: is democracy on the ballot? We'll play some of that for you a little bit later. But that's Otis Moss III, who also happens to pastor the church in Chicago, Trinity, that was once pastored by a guy named Jeremiah Wright. When Jeremiah Wright, you recall Jeremiah Wright from the Obama era, and Reverend Wright retired, Otis Moss III came in to take his place. So he pastors the church on the south side of Chicago, Trinity, been there many times, once pastored by Jeremiah Wright. His father, Otis Moss Jr., was the confidant of Dr. King. Dr. King participated in the wedding of Otis Moss Jr. So they were friends at Morehouse, and King was in Otis Moss is involved in the wedding. So there's a lot of connections to those Morehouse men, and I'm pleased to have this one on this program right now, former Homeland Secretary Jay Johnson. Let me jump in with the news of the day. Just watching my time here. Let me just tee this up. I'm not even sure we'll get into it right now, but let me just go right to this for those who've not heard this breaking news. Just before I came on the air live, the Secret Service director has stepped down, heeding calls to quit after the Trump assassination attempt. You recall this was lead news yesterday. She was on the hot seat. And her name is Kimberly Cheadle. She's on the hot seat yesterday, being grilled in front of in a committee hearing, and many saw her yesterday as being evasive, not really answering the questions. It reminded me of a more recent hearing. You recall the hearing where the college presidents got grilled by Elise Stefanik, the Republican congresswoman out of New York, who was on the big list to be Trump's running mate, never did quite make the short list. But she spoke, as you recall, at the RNC. We played some sound of her and her insane remarks last week at the RNC. But they grilled her. That is, being Kimberly Cheadle, the now former U.S. Secret Service director. She got pushed pretty hard yesterday, and it didn't take long for her to see the light or to feel the heat, maybe both. But just moments ago, she announced her resignation as a lead, as head of the Secret Service. So we'll start our conversation there with the former Secretary of Homeland Security, Jay Johnson. We come forward, and a great deal more to get into. You're listening, and I'm glad about it, to Tavis Smiley.
This is getting good. Yeah, man. Tavis Smiley continues when we come forward.
Make a move into a home of your own. With City National Bank's Ladder Up Home Loan Grant, you could receive up to $20,000 that you never need to pay back. Use it toward your down payment, save on closing costs, or to buy down your mortgage rate. Find out more at cnb.com/ladderuphome. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Property must be in a qualifying market in California, New York, or New Jersey. Additional terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Terms are subject to change without notice. City National Bank is an equal housing lender. Member FDIC. NMLS number 536994.
Oh, man. Looks like Bobby needs a ride to the airport again.
Grab the keys.
Who's taking Auntie and her friends to the swap meet?
Grab the keys.
How about we drop these boxes off at Miss Johnson?
Grab the keys.
Whether you're giving rides or hauling gear, you're all about getting things done. So do it all in a Chevy SUV. From the versatile Equinox and sporty Blazer to the roomy Traverse, our lineup of SUVs will carry you through every adventure. All you have to do is
grab the keys.
That's how we do. Head to your local Chevy dealer, where well-qualified buyers get 1.9% financing on all 2024 Malibu, Colorado, Blazer, Equinox, Trailblazer, and Traverse limited models. Chevrolet. Together, let's drive.
1.9% APR for 36 months. Monthly payment is $28.60 for every $1,000 you finance. Example down payment 15.8%. Must finance with GM Financial. Some customers may not qualify. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take new retail delivery by 7/1/24.
$5,000. That's the average amount of money people in the U.S. are now spending on gas in a year. $5,000. That's crazy. If you drive, you have to download Upside, the free app that gives you cash back every time you get gas. That's right. You can earn real cash back with Upside just by buying the gas you're already buying. You can literally start earning cash back today.
I use Upside every time I fill up, and I've already made around $300.
You're putting gas in your car anyway. Why not get real cash back? If you like free money, download Upside.
I'm saving the cash I earn from using Upside to help pay for a vacation later this year.
Download the free Upside app now to earn cash back every time you buy gas. Use promo code PATH to get an extra 25 cents per gallon on your first tank. You can cash out anytime right to your bank, PayPal, or a gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Upside app and use promo code PATH for a 25 cents per gallon bonus on your first tank. That's code PATH for a 25 cents per gallon bonus.
Who do you trust to get at the truth? Tavis Smiley. That's who. The conversation continues right now.
It does indeed with the former Homeland Security Secretary Jay Johnson. Don't take my word for how grilled Kimberly Cheeto was yesterday in Congress in this committee hearing. Today, she stepped aside pretty swiftly after that spanking that she took yesterday. I mentioned a moment ago, it kind of reminded me of the college presidents who got beat up pretty badly. And as you know, two of those presidents ended up being forced out. Claudine Gay at Harvard, the first black woman to be president of Harvard, and the president whose name escapes me at the moment, but UPenn. She got pushed out. The person at Columbia survived. Of course, that same president of Columbia ended up getting a vote of no confidence around the Gaza protest on the campus there. But when you get in front of Congress and you let them spank you, there's a good chance when the whole world sees you that you might not survive that. And this happened pretty quickly, as I said. She spoke yesterday, and she resigned today. Once again, her name is Kimberly Cheeto. She's now former director of the U.S. Secret Service. Here's just a little sound of what she had to endure yesterday on the Hill.
On July 15th, this committee sent you a list of demands of information that we wanted. Has the Secret Service provided this committee a complete list of all law enforcement personnel that were there that day? Have you done that? Have you provided a list to the Oversight Committee? Yes or no?
I will have to get back to you on that.
That is a no. Have you provided all audio and video recordings in your possession to this committee, as we asked on July 15th? Yes or no?
I would have to get back to you.
That is a no. You're full of today. You're just being completely dishonest.
So I saw, that's right, you heard her. She dropped the S word. I can't say it on radio, but you know what she said. You're full of S. Now, let me just say before I get to Jay Johnson, get my own commentary out of the way. I was flipping channels last night. I'm not a frequent watcher of TV news. That's a whole other conversation. It might surprise you, given what I do every day, that I don't watch a lot of TV news. Maybe one day we'll just talk about that, about why I can't stomach watching a lot of TV news these days. But I was flipping channels last night and saw, what's the sister's name on CNN? Laura Coates. So Laura Coates had this representative on last night. Her name is Nancy Mace. That's the white woman who you saw, Republican, South Carolina, who you saw, heard, I should say, grilling Director Kim Cheeto. So Laura Coates had Kimberly Cheeto as a guest on last night. And so I stopped and I watched it for a few minutes. And I was just kind of dumbfounded. I told y'all weeks ago that I hated that Lester Holt interview with President Biden. It's the left always feeling this need to engage in what I call, both sidesism. So Lester Holt goes after President Biden for using the word bullseye, as if any way that equates to all the stuff that Donald Trump is. It was a false equivalency. And Lester, who I like, should have known better. And he just went in on Biden. And the president, in that instance, pushed back on Lester Holt, as you recall. But it was so totally unnecessary. So last night I'm watching Laura Coates interview Nancy Mace. And at no point does she ask her, and I'm not a Puritan about this, Secretary Johnson, but the whole nation is watching you talk to the Secret Service director. And you tell her on national television, you're full of S. You have parents watching. You have children, young people watching on the news. This clip has gone viral. And at no point did Laura Coates ever ask her a single question. Is that the best we can do? Is that the example that we're setting? I mean, my point is that kind of language I'm not a Puritan. That kind of presentation gets normalized in our discourse. And that is what makes the discourse more coarse and less civil. I digress for now. Let me pass the mic to Secretary Johnson for a couple of things. Number one, how did you read this grilling yesterday? What do you make of her resignation? And to the extent you want to opine on the comment I just made about how this coarseness in our civility continues, you're free to do so as well.
Wow. Do you have another 2 hours?
Exactly.
So, Tavis, when I was Secretary of Homeland Security, I testified before Congress 26 times. I successfully avoided the House Oversight Committee. Committee hearings like that, in that environment, are not, I'm going to sound like a cynic, but it's reality. They are not a search for the truth. They are not a search for information. They are up there to embarrass the witness, to humiliate the witness, and score political points. They all want their little excerpt on Fox and Friends or MSNBC or CNN or C-SPAN 6 that goes viral, and they can fundraise off it.
Yep.
So I try to tell people who have to be witnesses in congressional hearings, this is not an intelligent exchange of information or ideas. It's an exercise in do no harm. Now, I have to take a step back. You may or may not recall that just about almost exactly 10 years ago, we had a director of the Secret Service who was forced to resign the day after she testified before Congress. And I was secretary at the time. There were a series of missteps, and the Congress grilled her. And as recently as this morning, when I was on Fox, I believe in working both sides of the street, Tavis, literally. So I was on Fox this morning when I said that, look, I don't know her. I don't know her relationship with the secretary. I don't know her relationship with the president. Sometimes the person who is in charge during the massive failure might be the best person to fix the massive failure, or other times there's just simply an utter loss of confidence. You need a fresh start, and the person has to resign. That's apparently what happened here. I was the cabinet-level oversight of the Secret Service for 3 years. I was a protectee of the Secret Service for 3 years. And in 2015, I was the one who made the decision, after consulting congressional leadership, that candidate Donald Trump needed Secret Service protection, and he's had it ever since. The Secret Service has to pitch a no-hitter every ball game. If a runner gets on first base, the result is catastrophic. Or, as they also say, one failure is the equivalent of 1 million successes for the Secret Service. What happened on July 13th, there is no good explanation for that timeline that we've all seen so often now. There is no good explanation for why the Secret Service itself did not take care to ensure that every rooftop, every window, every terrace with a direct line of fire on their protectee was not secured. We learned that the hard way on November 22, 1963. People observed Lee Harvey Oswald in the window of the book depository moments before the shots were fired that killed John F. Kennedy. And since then, it's basic, an open-air event with a protectee, president, former president, future president, that you have to secure everything that is line of sight, line of fire, even if it is beyond the perimeter of the immediate event. Why that was not done here, I don't know. Why the Secret Service did not heed the warnings from local law enforcement, from civilians who observed this man on the rooftop, I do not know. One day we will know, and unfortunately it's going to have to be a major lesson learned for the Secret Service.
In a moment like this, where, and again, this is a very rare moment, but in a moment like this, where the Secret Service makes a mistake, as you'll recall, you were there during the Obama era, when somebody got over that fence and got into the grounds, I think maybe even into the building of the White House. Black folk and others, black folk particularly, and others who care about Barack Obama went ballistic. How could y'all let somebody get that close to the sitting president, who happened to be an African American? So when there is a meltdown like that, and I take your point, they got to get it right every time, the Secret Service, but when there's a meltdown like that, take me quickly inside the organization and give me a sense of what happens.
when there's a meltdown like that, you do need somebody to take control of the steering wheel and say, in 2014, 10 years ago, I had to go to the Secret Service headquarters and give them basically a slap on the wrist and a pep talk. And I remember it. It went to the senior management. The director had just resigned, and I said, okay, today is the day you bottom out. From now on, this day forward, we're going to get better and better. And, for the 99.5% of the time, the Secret Service does a remarkable job. They handle the UN General Assembly every year on the island of Manhattan with over 100 world leaders, and the Secret Service is responsible for all of it. The thing I have to add also, Tavis, is that physical security is, for the Secret Service, a strictly nonpartisan issue. Whether you're a D or an R and you're a protectee of the Secret Service, you get a certain basic level of security. Former President Trump, candidate Trump, I suspect, gets way more than any former president because of his unique situation. I'm hearing about these conspiracy theories about the attempted assassination, but the Secret Service made a huge mistake. It was a huge failure, but it is a very nonpartisan agency. I know that from personal experience.
The thing that got me about this, and again, I know precious little about the way they do what they do. I just know they do it rather well because we don't have more incidents. That's common sense. But
last time a president or a candidate or a former got shot at was 43 years ago.
Exactly.
That's not an accident.
Exactly. So they do their job. They do their job rather well. But in this instance, what got me was that the guy clearly had access to a rooftop. He was close enough to shoot the shots that he shot. There were people. There were people at the rally that day who were pointing out there he was. I guess my question is, if somebody had slipped,
if you see something, say something.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly.
We teach the public. If you see something, say something.
Right. But if this person who's now deceased, 20-year-old shooter, if this person had slipped through some other way, maybe I'd be more understanding of how that might have happened. But rooftops. But rooftops seem to be, to your point about Lee Harvey Oswald, rooftops seem to be, the first thing you cover when you are trying to protect the press. So, but my point is, how did a mistake of that caliber happen? That's what I'm pressing toward.
I'm waiting for the explanation myself.
Right.
I suspect that one factor here was that campaign events tend to get organized very quickly, but it's basic that somebody stands at the podium where the protectee is going to be and says, okay, we need to secure that window, this rooftop, that line of sight, this line of sight, make sure they're adequately covered so that nobody with a gun can just climb up there and take a shot at him.
And what did you make, I'm just asking you a personal question here. I've got my own point of view, and I suspect everybody in my audience does as well right now. But what did you make of Donald Trump basically holding up the Secret Service from doing their job while he wanted to stand there and posture, putting his fist in the air? And I've always said it's important for black people to understand that's a black gesture, right? That ain't a Klan gesture. When you put your fist up in the air like that, that's Black Panther. That's Carlos and Smith on the stand in Mexico City in 1968. But he's putting he's throwing up the black fist with blood on his face, yelling, "Fight, fight, fight!" And you can see the Secret Service trying to get him off the stage as a protectee. What did you make of his behavior in that moment?
And that image is probably on the front of 5 million T-shirts right now, right, Tavis?
Of course.
And the fist has been appropriated politically by the far right. That I've heard criticism of the way he was rushed off the stage. I can't second guess that because in the heat of the moment, when the bullets are literally flying, there has to be a judgment made. Do I keep the former president behind the barricade, or do I rush him off the stage as quickly as possible into the armored Suburban and off the site? And not enough credit has been given to those agents who literally shielded him, ready to take a bullet for him, because that's part of their job. Tavis, I do want to say something about our democracy.
Sure.
We are, as I'm speaking to you, I'm sitting here writing an ABA, writing a report to the American Bar Association about the state of our democracy. There's way too much fake news. A third of Americans believe the 2020 election was stolen, though it was probably the most secure in history. and political violence is on the rise. It's hard to recall that in my lifetime, over the course of 5 years, 5 major figures in America were assassinated. Medgar, Malcolm, JFK, Martin, and Bobby, all in a 5-year span. And I do worry that we may be headed into a period of political violence, and it's up to national leaders, anyone with a voice, and I include you and me in that conversation. Anyone with a voice, a public voice, has to do our utmost to try to turn down the temperature.
In the 2 minutes I have left, speaking of public voices, you heard my critique earlier of Representative Nancy Mace just dropping that S-bomb. I'm not a purist here, but I think that kind of talk, when the whole world is watching, you're full of S, adds to the incivility in our public discourse. Your thoughts?
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's got to be, for an elected official, there's a certain degree of responsibility in what you say and do that must come with that. You're not in it. You didn't get elected just for a cheap soundbite, okay? And that kind of rhetoric, which is, reverberating all over the country right now, that one soundbite does no good to advance the public discussion about how the Secret Service can do a better job in the future to protect the people they have to protect.
Yep. Here again, as I said earlier, I get troubled by my friends, and I do call them friends on the left, who miss these moments. So again, Laura Coates, love her, but she did not press this Republican Congresswoman Nancy Mace at all on the incivility, the coarseness of her dialogue at a moment when everybody's going in on Joe Biden and Democrats, blaming them, in fact, for the Trump assassination because of the coarseness of Democratic language. And so here's a moment to ask her, what do you call that? What do you Republicans call what you just did? Telling somebody in a hearing you're full of S. It didn't come up as a question. She wouldn't have got away with that with me yesterday, I can guarantee you. But I digress on that for now. I got 45 seconds left. Tell me, on a scale of 1 to 10, Secretary Johnson, how concerned you are about more political violence this year, but just between now and November. What's your threat level?
10 being the highest, 0 being the lowest. 8. I'd put it at an 8.
Wow.
An 8 right now.
All right.
Yeah.
And my last question is always, how's the music show going?
Oh, fabulous. I had a playlist last Saturday on WBGO 88.3 FM, Newark, New Jersey.
That's it.
All female R&B artists.
Wow.
A playlist of all iconic women.
Love it.
It was fabulous.
Love it.
I'm going to have you on my show one day, Tavis.
I'm happy to do it. Love that station.
If you'll accept.
No, one of the greatest jazz stations, greatest music stations in the country. Listened to it for many years. Whenever I'm back east, checking it out all the time, even on the app these days. But I love the fact that the former Secretary of Homeland Security also has a music radio show. He's a music lover. I love that about this guy. Secretary Johnson, always appreciate your insights, particularly today when the Secret Service Director has stepped down after that grilling yesterday about the assassination attempt against Donald Trump. Good to hear your voice. We'll do it again, sir. All the best to you.
All right. Thanks.
When we come forward, a conversation, the first of 2 on today's show, about whether or not democracy is on the ballot with the aforementioned Morehouse man, the Reverend Dr. Otis Moss III out of Trinity in Chicago. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
Paid for by government.com. Did you know? The United States Mint has issued a new Morgan silver dollar coin in proof condition for the first time. Not only that, they are also minted in 99.9% pure silver for the first time ever in history. Coin experts are calling this an amazing opportunity for anyone that knows the enduring popularity of Morgans. But you must hurry. Only 400,000 of these legal tender silver dollars were issued. These first ever Morgan silver dollars are brand new with stunning mirror-like finish, minted by the iconic San Francisco Mint. Call now and you're guaranteed a new first ever 99.9% pure silver proof Morgan dollar. To learn more, call 1-800-973-9717. If you order now, you will receive a free coin collector bonus pack, a $25 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-973-9717 now to secure your new Morgan silver dollars before they are gone. That's 1-800-973-9717.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Mike Moore. Now here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Former President Trump says he received no warnings there could be a possible shooter at his Pennsylvania rally earlier this month. Last night, Trump was joined by his VP pick, J.D. Vance, on Fox News, where they discussed the shooting. Both men agreed it was very lucky that Trump wasn't more badly injured. They also said someone needs to be held responsible for the slow reaction time from authorities. NBA legend LeBron James will be the Team USA flag bearer at the opening ceremonies of the Summer Olympics Friday in Paris. The African-American great was nominated for the role by fellow NBA great Steph Curry. James will be the first men's basketball player to carry the flag. Team USA's female flag bearer will be announced today. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
Generators aren't something you turn on each day, but when you do, they must be reliable. SoCal businesses have turned to Duthie Power for almost 60 years to keep emergency power systems maintained and serviced. See the generator experts at DuthiePower.com. That's DUTHIE Power.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
At age 39, even in the summertime, LeBron James proved he can still deliver when the game is on the line. LeBron scored the last 11 points for Team USA to help pull out a 4-point win over Germany in an exhibition game in London. It was the final tune-up for Team USA before the Summer Olympics in Paris. LeBron finished with 20 points, 6 rebounds, and 4 assists. Team USA was 5-0 in their practice games. They head to Paris today. First Olympic game is Sunday against Serbia, led by a center named Nikola Jokic. Vice President Kamala Harris was presidential Monday morning at the White House. She welcomed a group of NCAA athletes and coaches who won championships on the Division I, II, and III levels during the 2023-24 season. Harris stepped in to honor the athletes in place of President Joe Biden, who's at home in Delaware recovering from COVID. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580, where climate is king. Climate is king. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Ray Richardson, your sports connection here at KBLA Talk 1580. Join me and my co-host Neil Scarborough every Saturday night at 7 for Out of Bounds, the show that brings some flavor to the world of sports for 60 minutes. We take you beyond the scores and press conferences. We give you our point of view, the way black folks see what's going down. You can join the conversation and give us your analysis at 1-800-920-1580. Out of Bounds every Saturday night at 7 on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
You like the style, though. Me and the kids were always messaging. They LOL'd, I ROFL'd, but then I changed phone and the bubbles went green. But where there's a fill, there's a way. And I found a way to share what's in here. I'm tapping my heart.
WhatsApp, the place to safely send messages between different devices. Message privately with everyone.
Hey guys, do you want male performance in the bedroom and do you want it now? Get it in 47 seconds or less. For the first time, you can have instant male enhancement. Introducing Knox 47, the topical male enhancement that works in 47 seconds or less. Satisfaction guaranteed. Finally, after years of scientific research, our proprietary formula will allow you to perform in the bedroom like never before. Just imagine that little blue pill on steroids. No reason to settle and wait when you can get instant performance now. Forget about pills and potions that make you wait hours or up to 30 days to work. That's yesterday's news. Knox 47 is brand new. The hottest thing for men. And you don't need a prescription. Call now and get your free supply for a limited time.
To find out how to get Knox 47 for free, call now. 800-617-1621. That's 800-617-1621. Free bottles for limited time. Call 800-617-1621. That's 800-617-1621.
Smart talk for curious people just like you. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
You are indeed, and I'm glad about it. I was just thinking, this may be the first time in all my years of doing radio and television that I started my show with 2 Morehouse men back to back. It wasn't planned that way. It just happened that way. You heard Secretary Jay Johnson moments ago say that he wanted to give a shout out to his Morehouse brother, Otis Moss III, and then we made the point that his father, Otis Moss Jr., is also a Morehouse man. So we start today's program with 2 Morehouse men back to back, and I'm pleased to have the Reverend Otis Moss III on this program. Before I get to him, and you hear his melodious voice, let me just share with you. You may have already heard that President Biden has announced, or the White House has announced, that the president will give a primetime speech tomorrow night. Wednesday evening, he will give an address to the nation, talking, no doubt, about his decision to exit the race for president. And so we saw the announcement come on Sunday, and everybody, of course, has been talking about it in every strain. We've been trying to pick apart what this all means for him, what it means for Kamala Harris, what it means for the Democratic Party, what it means for the nation. But the president will have his say tomorrow night in a primetime address to the nation. We look forward to that. And, of course, we'll be unpacking what he says tomorrow night on Thursday's program. That said, I'm pleased to have the senior pastor of Trinity United Church of Christ, the Reverend Dr. Otis Moss III, for a spirited conversation, I suspect, about how the faith community should respond to this critical moment in U.S. history and the very high stakes facing Black America in particular. Otis Moss III, how are you, my friend?
I am well. It's good to hear your voice, Brother Tavis, and I'm so glad that you have 2 Morehouse men to begin your show. The Lord is looking over you. You shall be blessed as a result.
It is only down from here. When you start with 2 Morehouse men, it's only down from here. I don't know how James Clyburn feels about that coming on later in this show, or Michael Eric Dyson, or Jamal Bryant, or others. We shall see, but we are starting, as he said, with 2 Morehouse men. Before I jump straight to Reverend Moss and give him a chance to sound off, some sound that most of you no doubt have already heard, because he gave a talk. I would call it a mini sermon, a pep talk, a motivational speech, pick your phrase, but the Negro killed it. Whatever you call it by any other name, he killed it. And it's been circulating all over social media, reminding me of the Jamal Bryant piece, who I mentioned a moment ago, when he went in on Mr. Walker, Herschel Walker, in that piece that he did about we don't need a walker, we need a runner. Everybody was passing that clip around. The same thing has happened with this clip from Otis Moss III. I ain't got time to play the whole 9-minute piece, but here's a little taste of Otis Moss III trying to convince us that democracy is on the ballot.
The question for us today, since democracy is on the ballot, is will we stand up for the 295,000 people who die as a result of poverty every year? The question for us today, since democracy is on the ballot, is will we speak for the 87 million people who are uninsured in this nation? The question for us today, since democracy is on the ballot, will we stand up for people such as members in this congregation who have to decide whether to pay their rent or purchase prescription drugs? The question for us today, since democracy is on the ballot, will we stand with our union sisters and brothers who are under attack by corporations?
I don't know what happened there. I think got cut off right quick, or maybe some computer glitch, but you get a taste of it. You get exactly what Otis Moss III was saying. You hear him tuning up in that particular clip. So I'm sorry for the computer glitch, wherever that was, Rev Moss. But help me understand how you got in that frame. Why that particular formulation on that day?
I think it was specifically in reference to people who were saying that they were going to stand on the sideline, and some who were saying that they want to support someone who was undermining democracy. Mm-hmm. And so I began the conversation saying, you can vote for whoever you want, mm-hmm. but I said it's not about 2 candidates or personalities. It is about 2 visions. What vision do you have for your children and your children's children? Or do you want to go back? When people say, I want to make America great again, I always raise the question, what year are you talking about? Mm-hmm. Is that 1954? Is that 1923? Or maybe it's 1896? Or maybe it's 1843? I'm not sure. but we need a vision for a yet-to-be United States of America, in the words of W.E.B. Du Bois, versus a mythology that elevates an antebellum Confederate legend that was destructive to the black personality.
How do you, let me pivot right quick, and I'll come back. It's really ain't a pivot. I'm going to swing way out, and then we'll come back. How do you particularly navigate this line of church and state? We know that Trinity has always been an activist church prior to you. It was pastored by a guy we all know named Jeremiah Wright. But how do you, in a moment particularly like this, walk that line of the separation, we are told, between church and state?
My job is not to endorse candidates, but I am called to prophetically communicate issues. So the issue of being uninsured, that is a moral issue. The issue of people being able to have prescription drugs versus, do I pay for my rent? That's a moral issue. The moral issues, for example, of the Chevron doctrine, the idea, should experts be the ones who determine whether or not there are certain gases in the air, or do we give it to a judge? Or voting rights, that's a moral position. And so my role is to lift up moral issues. The people's job is to determine who will be the best person to be able to uplift these particular moral issues.
And what's your broader view? We were talking about Morehouse earlier. By the way, how is your precious father doing?
He is doing well, and I cannot wait to tell him that you asked about him, especially on air. He will be tickled.
Please do. Give him my love, man. Love your father. Speaking of Morehouse, I mentioned your father earlier. I mentioned his relationship to Dr. King. I mentioned the wedding and all the stuff that you already know as his progeny. You already know these stories quite well. But I'm wondering, given, again, the Morehouse connection and your being a pastor and your father being a pastor, retired now, and Dr. King being a pastor, what your read is of the black church in this particular moment on these moral questions.
Oh, that's a great question. There has been a tradition within the black church, what we call the black church prophetic tradition. The black church prophetic tradition has always been pushing against the kind of mythology that destroys the human personality. There's the black church tradition, and then there are churches that have black people. I come out of the black church tradition, the tradition of Frederick Douglass, the tradition of Harriet Tubman, the tradition of A. Philip Randolph, the tradition of Fannie Lou Hamer. We are in a moment where white evangelicalism has colonized many brothers and sisters into believing that the tradition that they function out of is a Western white tradition, when there is a beautiful, powerful black tradition of the faith tradition we call Christianity that black people have been lifting up from the moment it was born.
What then, since you went there, let me follow you. I'm looking at my clock. Let me tee this question up, and when we come forward, I'll give you all the time you need to unpack it. To your point about white evangelicals, you know where I'm going here. How do you read this white evangelical support of Donald Trump, number one? And even and on top of that, let me just throw two questions out. We'll let you unpack it when we come forward. How do you view this rabid white evangelical support of Donald Trump? And I fear that's going to get worse now that he has survived this assassination attempt. People think now that the hand of God is on him, and he's God's man for the hour, and the devil came in, and God stepped up, and protected Donald Trump. I mean, so I'm concerned about what you make of the evangelical support, wild support of Donald Trump. And then how did you read Tim Scott and all these other Negroes, black people at the Republican convention, invoking God as well? That brand of evangelicism, not just in white, but even represented by some of these black folk that we saw speak. How do you read that? I got a few other questions I want to ask Otis Moss III, the pastor of Trinity in Chicago, when we come forward. Love you, WVON in Chicago. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
You're listening to Tavis Smiley. Tavis Smiley. Ranked number 45 on the Heavy 100 list of the 100 most important radio talk show hosts in America.
We asked seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up.
Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month.
If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your Senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
All I need is one mic.
With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Tavis Smiley. Just a few short months ago, California Attorney General Rob Bonta filed 11 felony charges against Diana Turan, an assistant district attorney for Los Angeles County. The charges allege that Turan unlawfully accessed confidential computer data, including police officer files in 2018, and continued to use them after joining the DA's office in 2021. Ironically, Turan, who is now on administrative leave, oversaw the Public Integrity Division responsible for handling high-profile cases of police misconduct and public corruption, including the charges brought against LA City Council member Karen Price last June. To be sure, the case against Price has raised plenty of eyebrows. Indeed, one noted legal scholar has said publicly, and I quote, "Everything about this prosecution reeks," close quote. Could AG Bonta, with aspirations to become California governor, be punishing Turan for her role in DA George Gascon's police accountability agenda to curry favor with police unions? Could DA Gascon be using the case against Price to showcase his tough stance on crime and political corruption as he vies to retain his seat as DA? Honestly, I have no idea, but here's what I know for sure. Karen Price has been elected and re-elected by thousands of voters, mostly black and brown, who stand to be further disenfranchised if this matter is not handled correctly, which is why it matters to us at KBLA Talk 1580. When the prosecutor is being prosecuted, it seems to me that at the very least, there ought to be a thorough, top-to-bottom, independent review of all cases under Diana Turan's purview to ensure that none of these cases have been tainted. Justice and fundamental fairness demand no less, if public trust truly matters. And I hope it does. For KBLA Talk 1580, I'm Tavis Smiley. We welcome your feedback.
Let's get back to more of Tavis Smiley right now.
Let's get back to more of Reverend Otis Moss III right now. My time is getting away from me. Reverend Moss, the question I posed moments ago, how are you processing, since you mentioned it, I want to follow you, these white evangelicals and their staunch support of one Donald J. Trump?
I don't think we should use the term white evangelical. We should say capitalist in ecclesiastical garments and white supremacists in robes. Not all evangelicals are white supremacists, but you will notice that people who will be willing to support an individual who falls into the cavern of everything that is immoral and unethical and say we lift him up as our savior is wrapped around this idea of white resentment. This is similar to what happened in the post-Reconstruction period, the driving of white resentment. There should be a coalition between those who are poor and white and those who are black and brown, recognizing that a 1% is the one who has the power. But if we go back historically to what was known in Virginia as the Bacon Rebellion, when enslaved Africans and indentured whites recognized that they could build a coalition, the laws changed in Virginia and gave privilege to poor whites to say, we don't want you to build a coalition with enslaved Africans. And that idea of whiteness, which is a myth, continues to float within the ether of the American political consciousness.
And what are the dangers to your mind of his followers, many of them now seeing him as some sort of messianic figure?
I will lay out what my father shared with me in terms of enslavement. He said, never start with theology first to understand the enslavement. He said, when something becomes economically profitable, it will become then politically acceptable, and then become theologically permissible. He said, what we have here at this moment is when you place theology on it, a spirituality on it, then you can create a doctrine that says, I can do anything. I'm immune as president. I can go after those who are my political enemies. I can appoint people who are not judicial scholars, but who operate out of an ideological lens. We are building a fundamentalist country that has the veneer of religiosity, but is rooted in a destructive capitalism that does not see human flourishing as the center.
It's getting deep. It's getting deep. He is his father's son, and it's a beautiful thing. If you've never seen, as a matter of fact, you can Google it, and I encourage you, if you are as impressed with Otis Moss III as I always am, and you should know his father. And if you Google it, there are a number of videos that have been posted over the years. It used to be they did it annually. I don't know if they're still doing it, but annually, the two of them would preach together. I've seen this at Olivet, the church pastored by his father for many years in Cleveland. But it is quite a thing to see father and son, Otis Moss Jr., Otis Moss III, preach in tandem. And I'm sure there's some videos online. And if you want your spirit lifted, you want to see just a beautiful thing, father and son putting it down together, find one of those videos of Otis Moss Jr., Otis Moss III doing what they do as only they can. Our remaining moments with the son, Otis Moss III, when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Seeking the truth. Speaking the truth. This is the Tavis Smiley Show.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
You know where you want to go in life, and City National Bank can help. City National knows the dedication it takes to build your vision for the future into a reality, and our team is here for you. We have a wide range of options to help, from personal savings accounts to interest-bearing money market savings accounts and more, all designed to help you get where you want to go. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Learn more at cnb.com. City National Bank is a subsidiary of Royal Bank of Canada, member FDIC.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA reminds you that when we fight, we win, and we don't black down. LA Community Action Network, or LA CAN, was formed in 1999 when 25 residents of downtown LA came together and acknowledged the problems that existed in their community and made a commitment to do something about those problems, to stand together, organize, and become a force in the community that demands change. Civil rights and preventing the criminalization of poverty are their core projects. In addition, they take on women's rights, the human right to housing, and healthy food access. LA CAN also has projects focused on economic development, civic participation, voter engagement, and community media. While downtown LA remains their home base, with a particular emphasis on the Skid Row community, in 2007, they expanded their housing and healthy food access work into South Central Los Angeles. LA CAN believes that power for low-income people and people of color is achieved through a large, active, and well-informed member base that utilizes a multitude of methods to advance their messages and goals. If you'd like to join the Los Angeles Community Action Network and organize people to fight back against oppression, please visit cangress.org. That's cangress.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey, John, why so glum?
I just got let go. The company's downsizing. This is the third time in the last 2 years. I'm done with this.
Have you thought about My Computer Career? I've heard they can train you for a career in IT in just a few months, including cybersecurity and the basics of AI. And you don't need prior training or experience. Now that's a recession-resistant career.
Wow, thanks. I'll check them out.
Go to mycomputercareer.edu and take the free career evaluation. mycomputercareer.edu. Financial aid is available for qualified students, including the GI Bill.
He's rooting for everybody black. Everybody black. More of Tavis Smiley coming your way right now.
More of Otis Moss III, the Reverend Dr. Otis Moss III out of Trinity in Chicago, coming your way in the 4 minutes I have left. As he always does, Otis Moss III is dropping bars. I'm still noodling on what he said moments ago. I love that phrase. He said, don't call them white evangelicals, call them capitalists in evangelical garments. That'll preach. And I'm sure it has. Capitalists in evangelical garments. And then he laid that thing out. I never thought about it quite that way, but courtesy of his father, Otis Moss Jr., you got to look at slavery through the right lens. You start with the fact that it became profitable first, then it becomes politically expedient second, and then it becomes theologically permissible third. That's the serious frame that I'm going to be wrestling with and marinating on the rest of this day, probably for the next few days. Let me offer this as the exit question with the last 3 minutes I have. I will yield it all to you, sir. We're going to talk in the next hour, as I mentioned, about this big call last night, black men for Kamala Harris. There was a call the night before with black women. I ain't hating. They had 44,000 people and raised over $1 million. Last night, the brothers showed up, 56,000 brothers, and they as well raised over $1 million. Your thoughts on what you're seeing? I don't want to make you political. Trinity is again a church, 501c3, C4, whatever it is. But I am curious as to your read in this moment, given all the talk about Donald Trump siphoning off black men, how you read last night. My brother texted me, his name is Derwin, we call him Doobie. Doobie texted me a few moments ago that he was on the call last night. He donated money. I didn't know my brother was on there last night. But these brothers are being pulled into this. How are you reading this 56,000 person black male call last night over against all the dialogue about Trump siphoning off black male voters?
There is a deep hunger, spiritual hunger, for people to see transformation in this country. I was on the call last night. I donated as an individual, and I can speak prophetically as an individual, not endorsing as the church endorsing, but me, Otis Moss III. I can speak prophetically to the fact that there is a hunger for someone to stand up to one who is tearing down not only democracy, but also removing the work of our ancestors. And I'm excited. First of all, there is misinformation about all of these brothers who are moving toward Donald Trump. Second of all, the RNC had their quote-unquote DEI night, lifting up Tim Scott, and then all of a sudden they had an Amber Rose video and all of these other brothers. I like the way that Larry Wilmore says it, that just because you put some raisins in the potato salad, it does not taste any better. And the RNC has been putting a whole lot of raisins. Well, I shouldn't say a whole lot. They've just been putting about 4 of them in there, and they keep mixing them around as if they have a bunch. But I think that what we are seeing is that there is an excitement that brothers recognize the weight that is on them. They see the pain in their communities. They want to be insured. They have people who are impoverished and who are dying in the community. They have a heart in reference to voter rights. They want to see health care. They're concerned about HBCUs being taken because people want their land. These are the issues that we have to deal with and not be sidetracked by the side shows that are being created by the RNC.
If you were ever in Chicago on a Sunday morning, or for that matter, any day they are convened, but certainly on a Sunday morning, do yourself a favor and stop by Trinity. They will welcome you there. You will feel right at home. That I can assure you. You've been there many times over the years, and you will not be disappointed. Your spirit will be lifted and filled by anything that the Reverend Otis Moss III Jr. delivers across that pulpit. Glad we had him on for a few minutes today to talk about this notion of democracy being on the ballot. Reverend Otis Moss III, my friend and brother, always a delight to be with you. Please give your precious parents my love. Thank you as always for your time. I'll see you soon, I hope. I'll be in Chicago for the Democratic Convention, so I'll be at Trinity while I'm there that week at some point.
That sounds good. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you for your time. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Mike Moore. Now here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Former President Trump says he received no warnings there could be a possible shooter at his Pennsylvania rally earlier this month.